She was used to the dark. It held no surprises. Ripples of darkness pushed against her, invisible stones dropped into a pool of ink. She wasn't alone. Silence, companion to the darkness, was not her friend. She felt around her the emptiness of the vacuum, the grave. She found herself whispering to fill the silence. "Where are you? Where are you?" She could neither see nor hear it, but she could feel its presence. She stopped for a moment in mid-step, trying to get her bearings. Her hearing extended itself through the darkness, searching. As her eyes became accustomed to the gloom, she made out vast shapes on either side of her. There were machines made of dark, glistening metal, and they towered above her. She snapped on a tiny flashlight. Ahead of her, picked up in the thin beam, she could see more profound glooms, silent caves of blackness where awful things might lurk. Some of these horrors were caused by the power of her imagination, but she was afraid that some were not. There was something near, and it was situated right over there. Now she cursed both light and sound. The eyeless face cared nothing for such specialized perceptions. It used the old senses: vibration, electricity, fear. She whirled as a great looming thing detached itself from the deep knot of shadows near a gigantic machine that lay shrouded in its own dust. She found it fascinating, the way the shadows moved and grew, like something not human, the way they resolved into one, and that shadow suddenly turned solid and launched itself at her with an explosive hiss. Her long legs, clad in skin-tight black plastic, pumped smoothly as she sprinted down the central aisle of the Dolomite's great central cargo hold. The creature came running after her. An array of light from a globe in the ceiling picked it up for a moment. It appeared to be a full-size alien, with the typical backward-sloping cranium of its kind. The thing was as startling as an apparition from hell. Its claws, with their doubled fingers, reached for her. Julie turned and fled down the narrow confines of the hold. The area she ran in widened, and the creature managed to gain a few steps on her. Julie and the alien dodged around enormous packing cases, cubes of plastic 10 feet on a side. In her mind, she could see the zigzag path she would have to follow to get to the next bulkhead. After that, a sally port served as a midpoint connection to the next part of the ship's hold. She ran full out, counting off step by step. Julie continued across the hold, her senses on red alert, trying once again to locate the creature that was stalking her. After the midpoint sally exit, she came to the platform that blocked the way to the furthest exit. As she sprawled, it loomed above her, arms spread wide, jaws open in a terrifying grimace. Julie, meanwhile, was streaking through the cluttered compartment, sprinting at full stride and managing somehow to avoid the clutter of machines and packing cases that turned the place into an obstacle course filled with cutting edges. Here? She asked herself. Damn. Blind alley. Backtrack. She feels the ripples in the blackness lap against her, as its motion stirs the pristine stillness. She wonders how it can move so quickly. Its mouth, impossibly crowded with needle-tipped teeth, snarled and opened wide. From his jaw, and protruding through his mouth, came the hateful small replica of these jaws, composed with a small rectangular part like a tongue, which ended in a mouth filled with white, sharp teeth. This was it. There was no place to go. The creature moved in for the kill. At that final moment, Julie screamed at the creature. Priority override. Code Myrmidon. Cancel predation functions. The creature froze in mid-movement. His feeding tube withdrew into his mouth. His jaws closed. Julie then said, Return to standard program. She turned away from the creature, who stood frozen in position, and walked through the connecting passageway to Dr. Mayakovsky. You've done quite well, Julian, he said. That's a good 15 seconds longer than yesterday. Sometime soon, given enough practice, you might be able to last over 3 minutes. Just at that moment, a large brown dog came racing into the hold from a corridor. Stan had nicknamed him Mac. No one was quite sure how he had gotten aboard, but no one had gotten around to putting him off, and now he was taking the voyage with them. Mac ran to Norbert's feet and released a blue rubber ball he was holding in his jaws. The ball bounced 3 times and came to a rest at the monster's instep. Stan and Julie watched to see what Norbert would do. The robot alien bent down, and his long black arm, which somehow resembled an ant's chitinous appendage, brushed past the dog and picked up the ball. The monster's arm came back, then forward, and he threw the ball through an open door into the corridor. Barking furiously, the dog went chasing after it. Jesus, Stan, he keeps getting better, Julie said. It's all I can do to stay ahead of him anymore. XL1 does seem to have all the characteristics we're looking for. What will 10,000 of them be like? I don't think they'll be playing fetch. He's learning faster than I am, Julie said. I'm sure he's smarter than the real thing. The real thing in this case was the alien XL-1, also known as Norbert, so resembled, and who had caused such strange and deadly events on Earth. Despite his appearance, however, Norbert was not an alien. He was a perfectly simulated robot model of an alien, equipped with a number of computer-driven programs, among which was the Predator mode that Julie had been testing out. At the moment, Norbert was in the control room with them, showing no sign of his former ferocity. "How are you, Norbert?" Stan asked. "I am fine, Doctor, as always. That was quite a little run you gave Julie. Do you think you were going to catch her this time?" "I do not anticipate such things," Norbert replied. "What would you have done if you had caught her?" "What my programming told me to do," Norbert said. "You would have killed her?" "I cannot anticipate. I would have done what I had to do, without feeling, I might add. But let me further add, if remorse were possible for a creature like myself, I would have felt it. Is there an analog of remorse that does not involve feeling?" "You have a complicated way of expressing yourself," Stan said. Norbert nodded. "These matters require considerable thought and recalculation, and when they are expressed in words, they sometimes come out differently from what was intended." "I've noticed that myself," Stan said. "All right, Norbert, you've had your fun. Go to the laboratory. I'll want to scan some of your response codes, and get Mac to shut up. The crew is still in hypersleep." "Yes, Dr. Mayakovsky," Norbert said, and walked quietly out of the room. Dr. Mayakovsky retired to the control room. Waiting for him was an old friend, Ari, the cybernetic ant he had constructed himself. It crawled onto his finger. "Did you enjoy the show, Ari?" The following is an excerpt from Cyber Antics, A Big Little Adventure, the children's book written by Dr. Stanislaw Mayakovsky. Foreword by Jerry Prosser. It is with a great deal of pleasure that I introduce one of my favorite childhood books. I was privileged to have been acquainted with Dr. Stanislaw Mayakovsky for many years as a student and had admired him for many more. I will never forget his knowing smile and gently provocative sense of humor. Even if you have never had the pleasure of his company, I know that you will meet him in the pages of this book. Dr. Mayakovsky's mysterious disappearance greatly troubled his friends and colleagues for many years. But recently, a clue was recovered. A clue in the form of a little metal ant. This is one of her stories. Her first. I believe she has many more stored in her memory. I hope she will, one day, tell us. There once was an ant, a very special ant. Instead of chitin, glands, and organs, this ant was made of chromium, lithium circuits, and optic cable only a fraction of the diameter of a hair. This ant also had a very special brain of micro-miniaturized components, as well as some options not usually found in an ant. She was born of computerized design and crafted from the finest parts. "What a fine piece of work," her creator said as he made the last connections. "What a fine little ant. I think I'll call you Ari." Ari's first real memories were of looking up and seeing her creator. She had to adjust magnification to keep him in view. "Activate Program Alpha," she heard him say. She searched and sorted internal programs and behavioral hierarchies within her holographic memory at the speed of light until she opened the program named Alpha. At once, she knew what she had to do. Without saying goodbye, Ari began her mission. Ari could not see far into the forest of grass that reached high into the sky. She activated her sense of smell, and a whole new world presented itself. A world filled with subtle variation, its complex structure based upon molecular chemistry rather than sound or light. Sorting and analyzing all the information filled her available operating memory to capacity. She tested the air for signs of pheromones left by other ants. There it was. A trail. Ari followed the trail until she reached a nest of ants. She could tell from their smell that these were just the ants she had been built to find. Ants that were just like her. She stood and watched them for some time. They moved in and out of the hive with such determination and precision. What a commotion! Ants came into the clearing carrying food. Others rushed to assist them with their burdens. Still others followed the trails left by the foragers back to the food supply. Ari understood her next action was to enter the nest. As she moved closer, a guard approached. The guard did not recognize Ari's scent and took a defensive posture. "Who are you?" asked the guard. Ari continued to advance, sure in the knowledge that she would be able to deal with this circumstance. Her programming was sound and her alloy chassis could withstand a great deal of punishment. Internal processors created a pheromone that put the guard at ease. Ari passed it with her shiny mandibles. The guard accepted the tasty bolus and let Ari pass. "Oh, thank you," said the guard. Her creator had been very thorough in his research on the chemical composition of pheromones, the medium of ant communication. Ari had the ability to synthesize the correct pheromone for virtually any circumstance. She was the perfect Myrmecine spy. The hive was filled with activity. Ari could hear all the ants moving around her. Some were carrying food to storage areas. Others were tending to the eggs and larvae. Ari could hear the incessant clickings of the young ants. Food, food, food. She followed the sound to proceed with the next phase of her program, the center of life in the hive. The Queen. In the decades following the end of the Earth War, humanity's spirit endured. Cities were rebuilt and new innovations were bred. One such innovation was the development of the wonder drug Xenozip, created by NeoPharm Industries. Its founder and CEO, Daniel Grant, led a mission to a planet believed to be the homeworld of Xenomorph XX121, the source of Xenozip's key ingredient, the hive's royal jelly. Many lives were lost, though the mission was deemed a success. For reasons not entirely explained, Daniel Grant stepped out from the public eye after a controversial merger with Lasalle Bionational, creating BioPharm. Manufacture of Xenozip in its synthetic form flourished only briefly. The disastrous side effects and violent behavior and even mutation became all too much to ignore for the Earth's courts. The drug became illegal. This didn't stop the demand for Xenozip in any way, especially in its natural form. Desperate times called for desperate measures. There possibly could be no case more desperate than that of Dr. Stanislav Mayakovsky, author of Cyber Antics. The ill-fated mission of his vessel, the Dolomite, and alliance with a known thief became something of a legend back on Earth. No one fully knows exactly how the illegal harvest came to grief, but accounts have created a clearer picture of Dr. Mayakovsky's final days. From the report by Captain Hoban. I was in the middle of the whole thing with Stan and Julie. I guess almost everybody on Earth knows how it ended, but they don't know how it began. I've been putting together everything I know about it. I figure it started the morning Stan got the summons. That morning, Stan had to go downtown to the Colonial Mercantile Building on Vesey Street. It was filled with city and federal buildings, some of them quite old, dating back from before the time of the aliens, miraculously unburned during the anarchic days when the aliens ruled. Some of the buildings in this area were brand spanking new. There had been a lot of rebuilding since those days. Stan would have liked to have been part of the first days after humans reoccupied their own planet. It must have been exhilarating, reoccupying your own country, having a future again on your own planet. Now, of course, it was business as usual. More or less. Times were pretty good. America was experiencing a boom. Business was strong. A lot of people were making a lot of money. Some people, of course, were losing a lot of money. It had to come from somewhere. So, it came from people like Stan. From the records of the court of Judge Jacob Lesner. Dr. Stanley Mayakovsky? Yes. Come in. I suppose you know what this is about? No, I don't. Your lawyer really should keep you better informed. Well, this is a pretty simple matter. This is a government order seizing your spaceship. The Dolomite? Yes, of course. That's the name of your ship. You may no longer go aboard. But why? You were sent a notice a month ago advising you of the government's decision to take action against your unpaid bills. They are not allowed to do that. My spaceship is one of the few ways I have of conducting business. If they take that, how am I supposed to pay them what they say I owe? That is not my concern. You should have taken that into consideration when you fell so deeply into arrears. In any event, I am hereby notifying you of the government's decision to take your ship. If you have any difficulty with this, you or your lawyer can file a complaint with the clerk down the hall. Julie had always been unusual. She spent several years on her own, accomplishing unbelievable feats of thievery in Europe and America. She made money easily and spent it easily. Her life was rich and pleasurable, but she began to sense a loss of purpose, a slackness that was beginning to alarm her. It was a question of motivation. Why was she doing what she was doing? What was she living for? The only thing she could think of to do with her life was to get rich. It wasn't enough, she knew, but it was a start. After she accomplished that, she'd take the next step. She had picked up a book, Cyberantics, and was fascinated by the possibilities presented by this Dr. Mayakovsky. She soon found herself at his door late on a stormy night. She rang the bell. The front door creaked in his hand, almost as if it were reluctant to open. Stan peered out, his nearsighted eyes blinking behind his thick glasses. "Dr. Mayakovsky?" the woman said. "I am Julie Lish. I have a matter of considerable importance to discuss with you. May I come in?" Stan had been staring at her hard as if she were a lab specimen. Now he came back to himself with a start. "Oh, certainly, please. Come in." He escorted Julie Lish inside and led her through the gloomy hallway to the well-lighted room where he had been staring into the flames of a dying fire. "I've made it a point to find out about you," Julie said. "I'm always careful to research my future partners." "Please explain," Stan said, with what he hoped was dignity. "You say you've studied me. What have you come here for? What do you want?" "Stan," Julie said, "I'll make it short and sweet. I'm a thief. A good one. No, I'm a lot better than just good. I'm one of the best who ever lived. Unfortunately, I can't bring you press clippings. Really good thieves don't get written up. You'll just have to take my word for it." "All right, let's say I accept it," Stan said. "So?" "I've made a lot of money in some of my enterprises," Julie went on, "but not as much as I'd have liked. Stan, I want to be rich." "I take it you have some ideas on how to realize that goal?" Julie reached into a small purse she carried, took out a package, and handed it to him. Stan looked at her questioningly. "Do you know what this is? Open it and find out." Stan held it up to the light. It was a heavy, viscous liquid with bluish lights in it. He unstopped the tube and sniffed. The aroma was unmistakable. "Royal jelly," he said. She nodded. "Do you know what this stuff is worth?" "As a matter of fact, I do. It is one of the most valuable substances in the galaxy." "Suppose I tell you that I know where we can lay our hands on an entire shipload of the stuff. At least 100 tons. What about that?" "Who does it belong to?" "Whoever gets it." "Who did it used to belong to?" "A freelance honey-collecting expedition, but it came up lost and has never been heard of again. Before vanishing, they sent out one signal by subspace radio. It was intercepted by a certain BioPharm official. He never got around to using it. I guess he was going to take it to the grave with him, but I persuaded him otherwise." Stan didn't ask her how she had managed this. At that moment her face looked quite sinister, but it was no less beautiful because of that. "So you know where it is?" "I know approximately." "And you think it's as simple as walking in and taking it?" "Flying in," she corrected. "There might be objections to our appropriating this cargo," Stan said. "So what? It's not illegal. Salvage rights belong to whoever gets them. The stuff's ours if we can get it. It's a lot of money, so there's going to be a lot of risk. I don't know about you, Stan, but I'm tired of being small time. Just once, I want to go for all the marbles. Don't you feel that way sometimes?" "I think I'm ready for a big one, too," he said slowly. "But there's still a difficulty. Where there's royal jelly, there'll be aliens. How are we going to get through them?" "The same way your Aunt Ari got through the enemy ant nest, Stan. That's how." "You think I could make a cybernetic or robotic alien, and he could get through an alien ant nest?" "I know you've been working on such a robot," Julie said. "Why don't we find out if it works?" "Julie, you flatter me by coming to me with this partnership offer. But evidently you don't know my full situation." "I don't? Tell me then." Stan shrugged. "There's not much to say. Melanoma. I've got 6 months. Maybe a little longer if I want to lie in a hospital bed and breathe pure oxygen." "You look like you're moving around pretty good just now," Julie said. "Oh, yeah, sure, but that's just now. This stuff is the only thing that keeps me going." He took out a vial of Xenozip and showed it to her. "And this is the only stuff that does you any good?" "That's right," Stan said. "It's expensive even for a rich man. For someone whose assets have been seized, well, I'll run out soon, and I don't know what happens then." "Tough," Julie said, with no pity in her voice. "So this stuff won't cure you?" Some doctors have theorized that if I could obtain absolute unadulterated royal jelly fresh from the alien hive before any byproducts were added and before it had some time to lose its potency, it might buy me more time. But it's impossible to get. Except by going to the source, Julie said. Yes, that's right, Stan repeated slowly. Except by going to the source, to a place where the aliens actually produce it. That's the sort of place I had in mind for us to go, Julie said. Like I told you, I know where there's a shipload of the stuff. So what is your idea? Stan asked. Do you think we can just go there and get it? That's about what I had in mind, Julie said. The BioPharm people might have something to say about it. I figured we could sneak in, grab the shipload, and get out before they spotted us. You think it would be as easy as that? She shook her head. I never said it would be easy. An alliance quickly formed between the two, as did a romance. It would be only a matter of weeks before all elements of the mission aligned. The Dolomite was secured. A small crew, Captain Hoban, ship synthetic Gil, and Norbert. It was to be a journey of almost 2 weeks' duration, not a long one, as space trips go. The time was nearing to wake the crew from hypersleep. The flight was almost at an end. There was a lot to do, a lot of last-minute details to attend to, and she didn't know when she and Stan would get some quiet time alone. Maybe not until they had finished the expedition, or, to call it by its true name, their raid, and that could take time. When Julie came into the control room, Stan was still seated in the big, padded command chair. He had taken an ampule of royal jelly from a dozen that were nested in the padded box on the nearby work table. He was holding the ampule up to one of the arc lights, twirling it between his fingers and admiring its bluish glow in the light. Returning the ampule to its case, Stan asked, "What did you think about Norbert's performance?" "He's ready," she said. "You've done an amazing thing, Stan. Created a robot alien good enough to fool the real ones." "Except for the pheromones," Stan pointed out. "You've taken care of that too. With the short-range zeta fields you've developed, plus the pheromone-altering qualities of the royal jelly, the aliens will think Norbert is one of them." Stan nodded. "Just like it was with Ari." "How close are we now, Stan?" Stan punched up the computer screen in front of him. Numbers flowed across it, and lines weaved in and out and held firm. "We're nearing the vicinity of AR-32, Stan told her. "It's time to get the crew out of hypersleep." "The adventure begins," Julie said softly. Stan and Julie walked out onto the raised stage. The crewman looked up attentively when he rapped a pointer on the lectern to get their attention. "We've reached orbit around a planet marked on the charts as A6454, colloquially referred to as AR-32, Stan said. "It's so far off the usual routes that it hasn't even had a formal survey. However, from the readings we've gathered, we know that this planet does have a barely breathable atmosphere, and seems to be constantly buffeted by storms." One of the crew, named Badger, rose to his feet and said, "Sir, this wouldn't by any chance be a bug-hunting expedition, would it?" "Not exactly," Stan said. "Then what exactly is it, sir?" Stan ignored the crewman's insolent tone. "This is basically a salvage operation," he said. "We'll be taking a load of royal jelly off a wrecked freighter." "Yes, sir," Badger said. "And aren't the bugs going to have something to say about that?" "Our information is that there are no bugs on the wreck. We'll go in fast, take what we need, and we'll be out of there again. There's also the possibility we'll find an abandoned hive on the planet. The jelly in that could be worth millions." Stan rapped for attention, but just at that moment, from an outer corridor, Mac the dog came trotting into the room. He had a bright blue rubber ball in his mouth, and he looked around expectantly. Someone in the crew laughed. And then something else came into the room behind the dog. It came loping on all fours, and at first glance it looked like a beetle the size of a rhinoceros. It was colored a shiny, unrelieved black. Its skull was very long and curved back over its shoulders. It was toothed like a fiend and taloned like the devil itself. It was Norbert, and he looked like he had just come from hell. There was silence for one long straining moment, and then pandemonium broke loose. The crew scrambled to their feet and started running for the exits. Their work boots clattered on the metal deck as they surged toward the exit door, trying to push each other out of the way. Stan shouted, "Just stay where you are. Do not make any aggressive movements. Norbert will not harm you, but he is programmed to resist aggression. Just stay calm. It was not a calm-making situation, yet even now catastrophe could have been averted. But there was always a wise guy around, someone who had to push things a little too far. This time it was a crewman known as Steroid Johnny, an over-muscled hunk in a skimpy t-shirt, tight jeans, and lineman's boots, who carried an unlicensed presser rod in his boot and liked to cause trouble. Johnny feigned to his left, then went straight in at Norbert. 5 feet away he stopped and turned on his presser beam. He directed it at Norbert's back-sloping head. But Norbert moved faster, lunged forward, his jaws opened, the inner jaw shooting out of his mouth. The presser beam fell to the deck. Johnny screamed as he was lifted straight into the air by the skin of his shoulder. He hung in there in Norbert's grip, screaming, struggling to break free. Norbert's inner jaws, impelled with all the energy of his powerful, crystal mesh throat muscles, drove through Johnny's head, splitting him like a side of beef. Norbert dropped the red-dripping thing to the deck and turned, ready for the next one. Crewman Harris, seeing the way things were going as he ran to attack Norbert, tried to pull up in mid-stride. Too late. Norbert swung around like a grotesque yet graceful ballet dancer and struck out with one of his taloned feet. The blow landed high on Harris's sternum. Norbert's talons made an audible hissing sound as they cut through the air, driven by the force of his heavy shoulder muscles. The talons ripped Harris apart from the left shoulder blade to the right hip bone. Harris opened his mouth to scream, but no sounds came out. His lungs had been punctured in the blow. He made an ugly squishing sound as he fell to the deck. The rest of the crew took this in and froze in position. They had never seen anything move as fast as Norbert when he was aroused. Norbert halted, looking around. He seemed about to attack again. Just in time, Stan shouted out the shutdown order. Priority override, code Myrmidon. Norbert froze in position, awaiting further orders. It was a moment of balanced possibilities. The crew seemed on the verge of panic, ready to run out of the control room screaming. Captain Hoban gulped hard and felt nausea at the back of his throat, but he knew he had to control the men. He got hold of himself and said coldly, "Two of you there, get pails and mops and clean up that mess. See what comes from not following orders? This didn't have to happen. Now get a move on." There was an awkward, sullen moment, and then the crew obeyed, and the ship Dolomite hurtled towards its rendezvous with AR-32. Hoban sat at the control board, his fingers playing sensitively over the buttons. The telltale above his head gave a readout on the orbit and showed a digital display of gravity vectors. "I'm getting some strange signals," he told Stan. "Where are they coming from?" "That's what's strange. I can't get a fix. They keep on shifting. I'm not sure of their point of origin, or even if it's some naturally occurring phenomenon. But given our location, it could be some sort of proximity alarm." "Any other ships in the sector?" Stan asked. "No, although there seems to be quite a bit of debris. If it is an alarm, let's get going before anyone comes. If it isn't, what's the use of waiting? The sooner we've returned from the surface, the better off everyone will be. Well, I've located your site at any rate. The surface is pretty barren. AR-32's surface sprang up into a high magnification." "That's the nest," Hoban said. "Not easy to miss it. It's the biggest thing in this part of the planet. Sticks up like a sore thumb." "Looks pretty quiet," Stan mused. "We're still a long way from the surface," Hoban reminded him. "Things could change by the time we get there. The weather's bad and likely to get worse, so we've got another reason to move fast. The computer's projections give us 12 hours before conditions put the platform at risk. I'm glad I'm not going down there." The number 1 lander was in its own bay, stacked parallel to the backup lander, just behind the big hold where Julie had made her last training with Norbert. Now Norbert walked behind her, the doctor, and Gil. She checked the readouts. "I've got green lights across the board. We're looking good, Gil. Norbert, why don't you find some place to sit down?" Without hesitation, the cybernetic alien responded. "Not designed to sit." She smiled briefly and switched on the intercom. "Hoban, do you read me?" "I've got you." Captain Hoban initiated the hatch opening procedure. The lander, nestled in its bay, was almost 100 feet long. It contained a miniature laboratory and was fully equipped with the telemetry needed for the mission. "Gil, are you ready for the drop?" "Yes, Captain." "Make sure everybody stays out of trouble. And don't start picking any fights with your uglier cousin." The lander fell away from the Dolomite's hull and dropped toward the swirling surface of AR-32. Stan adjusted his restraining harness and called out, "Everybody secure." The 5 volunteers from the crew were strapped down in the forward cabin. They were carrying weapons that had been issued to them by Gil. There was a powerful humming noise from the Dolomite's interior motors, a noise that could be felt inside the lander as vibration. The Dolomite's bay door slid open, revealing the star-studded sky as seen from AR-32's upper atmosphere. There was a click as the doors locked in the open position. Then a bright green telltale on Stan's control board came to life. "Hoban, this is Lish. We've cleared the bay and are on approach vector to the surface. The planet has a heavy radiation belt. No time for sightseeing. Gil, keep your eyes on the hull ionization." Stan felt his stomach turn over as the lander pulled away from the Dolomite. G-forces twisted at his gut. Sudden sharp flashes of pain went throughout his chest. A haze of pinkish red enclosed his vision, with blackness beginning to form on the edges. "Stan," Julie called out. "You don't look very good." Stan got himself under control. His fingers danced on the controls. "Okay, I've got it. Gil, give me a landing vector." They were deep into AR-32's atmosphere. Long, thin, ragged yellow clouds, twisting and turning into fantastic shapes, whipped past the Perspex viewing window. There was a little rattle of hailstones striking the hull as they passed through a temperature inversion layer in the atmosphere. Gil said, "We're on the final approach now. Good going, Stan." "See?" Lish said. "What did I tell you, Stan? A walk in the park." Stan forced himself to concentrate, though he was none too sure he could remain conscious. The G-forces eased as he pulled the lander into position for its landing run. There was more visibility near the ground. Stan adjusted the trim tabs and began the landing procedure. The lander put her nose up and steadied. Wind gusts took the ship as it touched down. There was a crunch as they smacked the ground, then a bad moment as the lander soared into the air again. And it came down again, hard, and it stayed down. Hoban eyed the monitors. "Your system shows the weather is worse than we anticipated. Braking to accommodate. You're almost in position. Don't take too long making us all rich." When the lander had come completely to a stop, Julie looked around and said, "Welcome to AR-32, everyone. It may not look like much, but this planet is going to make us rich." "Or dead," Stan muttered, but only to himself. Dolomite's log, Captain's entry. Following the launch of the mission platform, I've decided to examine some of the debris we noticed in orbit. Under closer scrutiny, we've discovered the remains of a ship. 2 men have gone on board to look for one of the ship's black boxes. I hope to find out what happened and if it will affect our mission. Dr. Mayakovsky had brought down the lander within viewing distance of the humped-up mound that was the alien hive, which he was able to inspect closely through the view-screen magnifier. The landing had exhausted him, and he retired to his cabin. Gil and Julie remained in the control room, examining the view-screen and the alien hive that it revealed. The hive was not only the largest non-natural feature on this planet, it was also larger than any natural feature Stan had yet seen there. Even the mountains were no more than a few hundred meters in height. The hive, standing over 1,000 meters above the windswept plain, was huge, imposing, with a dark majesty. The wind scoured it, grinding it down, and there was a constant activity from the aliens, who stood out as little black dots at this distance, building the hive up again, like ants repairing an anthill. "This one could probably be classified as a superhive," said Gil. "It's far bigger than any other recorded in the literature on the aliens." "Why do you suppose?" Julie asked. "This is only conjecture, of course, but it seems to me the odds against survival on this planet are so great that the aliens had to concentrate their forces. Keep one big hive going, rather than a lot of smaller ones. Saves us from having to make a lot of choices about which hive we plunder," Julie said. "The weather is obscuring the imaging system. I hope Norbert doesn't have any trouble. You never know what might be down there." It was then Mac approached, ball in mouth, eyeing Julie hopefully for a game of fetch. "What do you want?" Mac whimpered. "Sorry, no time. Maybe you can get Norbert to play with you before you leave." "Well, Gil," Julie said, "what do you think of all this?" Gil looked up from his inspection of the armament they had brought. His expression was mild, quizzical. "To what specifically do you refer?" "Stan and his mad trip for the royal jelly, this planet, me." "Why do you ask?" "Well, I guess you have a unique perspective. I'd ask Norbert, but he doesn't have verbal programming as sophisticated as yours. Besides, he gives me the creeps." Gil took his time before answering. "I feel like any other member of the crew. I have a job, I do it." Julie paused. "May I see your hands?" Gil reached out agreeably. "Don't you find human endeavor, Like this mission interesting? Gil answered matter-of-factly. Not particularly. I find most humans quite boring. Unfazed by this answer, Julie traced the creases of Gil's palms. They look so much like my father's hands. She let go. I'd better get Stan. I hope we get the chance to talk some more. One last thing. Yes? Sometimes I think it would be better to be a synthetic, able to reprogram myself with a new chip or bioelectrical circuit. Do you ever think you're missing something? By not being human, I mean? Not that I'm aware of. Julie began to walk away. I'm going to get Stan. See you soon. There was a burst of high-pitched static from the speaker, and then Captain Hoban's voice came on. Gil, Hoban here. I have some information for you. Are Stan or Julie there? No. The debris we encountered in orbit was a wrecked ship. We managed to get a flight recorder. I'll put the last of it through to you. The voices on the flight recorder were very clear. This is the Valparaiso Queen, Captain Kun commanding, 37 days out of Santiago de Chile. To whom am I speaking? This is Captain Potter of the BioPharm ship Lancet. Do you realize you are trespassing? I think you exaggerate, Captain. There's no trace of your claim in the recent issues of Star Swap. We haven't chosen to go public with it just yet, but there are electronic warnings posted at the beginning of the quadrant. Surely you intercepted those warnings. Oh, those, Captain Kun laughed. An electronic warning hardly constitutes a legal claim. No, Captain Potter, unless you publish your intent with the Federal Department of Interplanetary Claims, it can't be said to exist. I have as much right to be here as you. Potter's voice was low and hoarse with menace. Captain Kun, I am a man of little patience. You've already used up my entire store. You have about 1 second to go into retrofire and get your ship out of here. Kun replied, I do not take kindly to peremptory orders, Captain, especially from one who has no legal right to give them. I will leave this vicinity in my own time when I'm good and ready, and you may be sure I will file a complaint with Interbureau over your attitude. You will have more to complain about than an attitude, Captain Kun, but I doubt you will ever file that report. Do not try to intimidate me. The time for words is past. The torpedo that puts paid to your pretensions is now coming toward you at a speed well below that of light, but fast enough, I think you'll find. Torpedo? How dare you, sir? Number 2, full power to the screens. Take evasive action. And then a sound of an explosion, followed by static. Computer offline at 15:30:42. Hoban appeared back on the screen. My guess is that they're still somewhere in the sector. Save this information under secure file HJ3729. You will make no mention of this to any other crew member. Do you understand? Yes, Gil replied. The lander was too small to have separate staterooms. There was a cubbyhole in the rear with a deceleration couch that pulled down from the wall. Stan had laid down there. Julie bent over to shake him, then hesitated. Stan looked so peaceful there. The most recent ingestion of Xenozip had taken Stan's spirit far away, into the limitless perspectives that were the psychic environment of the drug. He was traveling through a place of pure light and color, and he smiled at the friendly shapes around him. By the look on his face, she could tell he was outside of time, a solitary immortal made of wax. She muses on the value of an eternity consisting only of slipsism and memory. How much time do they have left? Can she even think in such terms as he moves frozen in time? Like the runner in Zeno's first paradox, the finish line draws closer, yet not closer, through an infinite series of divisions of the distance. How can the race end when it's impossible to begin? She whispered, Stan, what are you dreaming about? Am I with you? What? Our walks through Central Park? Reading to children in the library? Making love? Norbert's first steps? Stan mumbled something, but she couldn't catch the words. She reached out and touched him on the shoulder. His eyes snapped open, as if he had been waiting for this signal. She watched his face tense as pain returned to his consciousness. Then he had himself under control and said, Julie? Is it time? How long have I been out? She caressed his head. Not long. We're just now getting ready. Stan rose up, put on his glasses. I was dreaming of you. You were... Shh. I'd rather have your travels be secrets. That way you're so much more mysterious. The only mystery about me is how long it will be until I start believing that kind of talk from you, Stan said. Julie, I'd like to ask you a favor. Yes, Stan, what is it? If you're doing this for my sake, please don't stop. Gil looked up, his long melancholy face half in a green glow from the ready lights on the control panel. On the screen above him, data waves danced in a long wavering line, the numbers changing with a rapidity that would defy the computational abilities of anything but a synthetic man with a math coprocessor built into his positronic brain. The storm is abating, Gil said. There's been a 20% diminution in the last half hour. Given the conditions here, I think that's about the best we're going to get. In fact, it's apt to get a lot worse before it gets better. Then let's get on with it, Stan said. He turned to Norbert, the big robot alien, who still crouched patiently in a corner of the lander. You ready, Norbert? Of course, Dr. Mayakovsky. Being robotic, I am always ready. And Mac? He is a dog, and so he is always ready too. Stan laughed and remarked to Julie, I wish now I had had more time to talk with Norbert. His horrible appearance belies his keen intelligence. You are responsible for my appearance, Dr. Mayakovsky, Norbert said. I think you're beautiful, Stan said. Don't you think so, Julie? I think you're both pretty cute, she said. Stan embraced Mac, fitting him with a new collar, specially designed for the mission. Bye, Mac. Thanks for your help. Maybe I'll see you again. You'll always be a good memory. The number 1 lander had 3 escape pods. These were used for close-up maneuvering, in order not to jeopardize the lander itself by piling it around poorly mapped ground features. Norbert fitted himself in, and Mac nestled up to his chest. Status report, Stan asked, peering in. All functions and systems nominal, Norbert replied. Glad to hear it, Stan said. Good luck, Norbert. I'll be sending down the 5 crew volunteers in a separate pod. Have you got all the stuff you'll need? Did you remember to check the charge and the inhibitors? Of course, Dr. Mayakovsky. They should give me enough time to do what I have to do. Okay, Stan said. Bon voyage. I'll speak with you in a few minutes. Goodbye, Dr. Mayakovsky. Gil, seated at the control panel, turned a switch. The pod came loose from the landing platform with a soft explosive sigh of power. It ejected straight into the air, dipped for a moment, then its electromagnetic receptors came up to full and the pod darted across the stormy landscape of AR-32 toward the distant hive. The pod, with Norbert and Mac aboard, was dancing around like a leaf in a storm. Wind force threw his pod up into the air, and the cross-current spun it like a top. The ground was coming up fast now to meet them. Wind shear this close to the ground added another factor to the dangerous uncertainties of the descent. Then they were bouncing across it, and finally spinning. They came to a halt. Then Dr. Mayakovsky's voice. Norbert, are you all right? Norbert had something new in his vocabulary, learned from Julie, and he hastened to use it now. A piece of cake, Doctor. A walk in the park. Hurry up and get the job done, Stan said. We want to get rich and get out of here. Stan sat in the lander and watched through Norbert's viewing screen as the robot's view of AR-32 swayed precipitously and began to slide off the screen. Gil said, There's something in the viewer's top right quadrant. Stan studied it. Yes, there it is. Norbert, magnify that quadrant. Norbert did so. The object sharpened, resolving from a black dot to a blocky shape of lines and angles. Norbert turned obediently and walked over. Within 20 yards he came across the body of an alien. It lay face down in the gravel, its long black form alternately concealed and revealed by the windows of dust that blew incessantly across the valley floor. At Stan's instruction, Norbert viewed it through the infrared scanner, and then an ultraviolet, to make sure the body wasn't booby-trapped. What can you see? Stan asked. It is an alien, Norbert replied. There is no doubt of that. It is perfectly motionless, but not dead. There is no sign of life, but also no sign of damage or decay. It looks almost as if it could be asleep. I'm switching to ultrasonic scanner to conduct a survey of the internal organs. After a short delay, Norbert reported again. Its internal organs are functioning, but at a very slow rate. It seemed to be intact and without injury. It appears to be sleeping, or unconscious. There are several more tests I could try. Whatever Norbert had in mind, it didn't happen, because Mac chose that moment to sense movement on the other side of a nearby hill and ran there, barking. Norbert got up and followed. When he reached the crest of the hill and looked over, the first thing he noticed was the small, fat-bellied little spaceship resting on its supports, nose pointed skyward, ready for takeoff. The second thing he noticed was the aliens, a dozen or so of them, lying motionless on the ground, just like the one he had left. And the third thing he noticed were the humans, 3 of them, bending over the unconscious aliens. For the men from Potter's ship, the Lancet, it had begun as a normal day's harvesting operation. This 3-man work crew had been down on the surface of AR-32 for half of their 5-hour shift. After relieving the previous crew, their first task had been to inspect the suppressor gun. It was a jury-rigged contraption, thrown together by a clever engineer from Potter's ship, a man with a knack for coming up with useful inventions on the spur of the moment. Suppressors were a new technology in the continuing war against the aliens. These could excite or stupefy them, depending on the velocity and amplitude of the wave's broadcast. Now, from its mount on top of the spaceship, his cannon turned like a radar dish, blasting electronic impulses that kept the aliens stupefied, while the crew of the Lancet milked them of their royal jelly. As they were finishing their milking duties, one of the crew members, Holmes, heard the barking sound and looked up. He was amazed to see a large brownish-red dog running over the top of the hill. He slowly approached Mac, hand out in a peaceful gesture. "Come here, Pooch. What are you doing here? Where's your... master?" It was at that instant that Norbert came striding over the crest of the hill and down into the harvesting area. There was a brief tableau. 3 human crewmen frozen like dummies, Norbert striding forward like a fury from the deepest hell, and Mac, in all innocence, barking and capering along like he was doing an outing. Holmes came unfrozen first. "One of them's come awake," he shouted. "Get that sucker!" The third crewman, Slots, got off the top of the spaceship rapidly. The 3 men dived for their weapons. Slots got his hands on the carbine he had propped against the rock outcropping. He slipped off the safety, aimed hastily, and pulled the trigger. A stream of caseless .40 caliber slugs streaked toward Norbert, who was no longer there to receive them. The threat toward him instantly pushed Norbert into predator mode. You could almost hear the new program click into place. Norbert was showered with white-hot fragments of metal, but they didn't have the force to penetrate his metallized hide. Although he wasn't hurt, Norbert was not pleased. Holmes was the closest, and the crewman just had time to scream as Norbert hooked his skull with his enormous jaws and tore it off in one economical move. It was a moment of gratuitous horror, though Norbert didn't view it that way. Just doing his job. Slots gagged and took to his heels, sprinting toward the harvester's open entry port, closely followed by Thomas. Norbert came racing after them, and almost made the entry port. It closed in his face, and Norbert slammed into it with a force that shook the harvester on its 6 slender legs and caused the radar-like suppressor apparatus on its roof to topple over and fall to the ground in a crackle of sparks. Slowly, very slowly at first, the aliens lying on the ground began to stir. Gil gasped as the scene of carnage was played over Norbert's visual receptors and relayed to the screen aboard the Dolomite's lander. Norbert, standing in front of the harvester's sealed door, was saying, "I am waiting further orders, Dr. Mayakovsky." "Yes," Stan said. "Just stand by for a moment." He turned to Gil. "What's the matter? Why are you looking that way?" I wasn't prepared for the violence, Doctor. I had no idea Norbert was programmed to kill." "How could you have thought otherwise? What do you think we're out here for? A sightseeing trip?" "Gil, we're all programmed to kill." "Yes, Dr. Mayakovsky, if you say so." "Think about it, Gil," Stan said. "Don't get humanitarian on us too soon. If it's really against your principles, perhaps you'd like to wait in the back bay until this phase of the operation is over. I wouldn't want you to do anything foolish." "Do not worry about me, sir," Gil said. "I have no sentiment about matters of killing. Sentiment was not programmed into me. I was surprised, that is all, but now I understand. I am ready to do whatever is necessary to protect you and Miss Julie." "Glad to hear it." Stan wiped his forehead. "Norbert, can you get into the harvester?" "The door is locked, Doctor," Norbert said. "I doubt it's a very advanced locking mechanism. Give me a close-up of the lock." Norbert leaned forward, focused on the locking mechanism, and switched to the X-ray mode. Stan studied the picture for a moment. "It looks like pretty standard stuff. Tell you what, just rip off the keypad and you'll be able to turn the handle manually." "Yes, sir." "Better hurry up about it. It would be best to prevent those guys from getting in touch with Potter." Inside the harvester, Slots and Thomas fell over each other getting to the radio. What is he doing awake? How the hell should I know? How soon to rendezvous with the Lancet? The door slammed open with great force, and Norbert was coming in, a towering black fury. Not soon enough. Slots tried to level the carbine, managed to get off one round that glanced off Norbert's shoulder and ricocheted around the cabin like an angry bee. Then Norbert was on him. The robot alien leaned forward, mouth open, second jaws extending through his slavering mouth. Slots, eyes wide and wild, tried to pull himself out of the way, but there was no budging Norbert's grip. The second jaw shot out like a piston and slammed through Slots' stomach and continued through, snapping the man's spine like a dry stick. Seeing what had happened, Thomas scrambled away from the radio. He climbed the ladder below deck, attempting to hide among the cargo of jelly. Norbert quickly pursued. Claws quickly reached out to the man's face, too terrified to run further, only gazing at the beast before him. Norbert's jaw shot out, a geyser of blood erupting from Thomas's head. Stan, back on the lander, was following visually. The blood had obstructed his view. Please clear your visual receptors and take a slow scan of the area. Norbert paused and obeyed. Stan continued to coach. You're doing fine, Norbert. We want to check out the whole ship for possible damage. You're really quite violent once you get started, aren't you? Not intentionally, Doctor. Julie leaned over Stan's shoulder. What's that in the background, Stan? I'm not sure. Norbert, make a 180-degree turn and do a slow pan. That's it. Now freeze. And magnify. Okay, freeze it right there. And correct the color. Good. Julie said, Plastic storage units. Each of them would hold, 5 liters? There are hundreds of them stacked there, Stan said. More on the other side of the hold. Are they royal jelly? Julie asked. Can we be absolutely sure of that? Stan replied. There really seems no doubt. The harvester is packed with the stuff. They must have been just about ready to take off back to the Lancet. It looks like the beekeepers have been here before us. Good thing we got here when we did, Julie laughed. Let's just get somebody down there to pilot the thing. We'll both go back to the Dolomite. Stan grinned. XL1, check the ship for damage and flight readiness. Use ultrasonic holography to check for booby traps or active self-destruct systems. Yes, Dr. Mayakovsky. Any problems? This system appears to be seriously damaged. I cannot determine its function. Norbert indicated the interior suppressor gear, which was strewn around the cabin, most of it broken into fragments of crystal and plastic. Well, now we know what it did. It looks like the crew was using some sort of infrasonic suppression system. Ingenious. They used it the same way a beekeeper uses smoke. I wish I would have thought of it. You might as well test the rest of the equipment. Take Mac outside. Outside, Stan could see a yellowish-brown haze with dark shapes moving through it. Half the aliens were up, the others were reviving swiftly. They moved sluggishly at first, then with increasing vigor, toward the harvester. Okay, said Stan. The suppressor is kaput and the aliens are awake. That's okay. Basically, our job is over. We've got the harvester. It was a little messy, but we got it. We need only pilot it up to the Dolomite and get out of here. Norbert, check the controls. The robot alien moved to the control panel. After a moment, he said, I'm afraid we've got trouble, Doctor. Stan could see for himself through Norbert's visual receptors. The battle inside the harvester had wrecked some of the controls. Oh, Stan, Julie said. Can Norbert fly that thing out of there? Sure, if conditions were right, Stan said. But I'm afraid it's not going to be as easy as that. The controls are all screwed up. Gil, have you had any luck in raising Captain Hoban? I haven't gotten him yet, sir, Gil said. That's just great, Stan said. I wish he'd call. He will, Gil affirmed. I know Captain Hoban. He would make contacting us his first priority. Well, that gives us a little time. A chance to do something I've always wanted to do. Julie looked at him. Stan, what are you talking about? I want to take a look inside that hive. Norbert, are you standing by? Stan demanded. I am, Dr. Mayakovsky. Okay, I take it all your systems are functioning properly? All my readings are in the green, Norbert reported. Is your suppressor working properly? Norbert checked. It is, sir. And Max? Norbert bent over the dog. It is functioning correctly. Then turn it off and open the harvester port. Sir? Norbert, are you having synapse failure? Didn't you hear me? It is such an unusual order, Doctor, that I wanted to be certain I understood it correctly. When I turn off Mac's collar, that will render him visible to the aliens. That's exactly what I had in mind, Stan said. We're going to make the aliens a little present of Mac. Give him to the aliens? That's right. You aren't going soft on me, are you, Norbert? No, sir, but is it necessary? Of course it is. They'll probably take Mac directly to the Queen. They give the Queen all the best stuff first, don't they? I think so, sir. So it is reported in the literature. That's right, Stan said, with a laugh. For a moment I forgot you weren't one yourself. Julie pursed her lips. She didn't much like what was happening, but what the hell? It was no business of hers. Stan explained. Mac will represent food to them. A tasty little morsel fit for a king. Only in this case it's a queen. That's who they'll take Mac to. And you, my dear robotic friend, will follow them. Protected by your own suppressor, they won't even see you. Without suspecting a thing, they'll lead you through the labyrinth to the royal birthing chamber. Through your eyes, I'll get the first picture ever taken of the queen of this hive. I'll be doing a unique service to science. That's worth any number of little dogs like Mac. He's just a common mutt. But you, Norbert, are unique. Stan turned to face Julie and Gil. Light glinted off his glasses. His face was drawn. His voice, high and strained, rose as he asked, "Does anyone here have any objections?" Julie looked faintly annoyed as she said, "Give them Mac or a kenful of mutts. It makes no difference to me. But would you mind telling me, just to satisfy my own curiosity, why are you doing this? It's the only way I can be sure of getting Norbert into the hive quickly without him having to spend God knows how long looking for a way in. The outside of the nest is sealed against the weather, as you might have noticed. Did you check that out? The aliens must have a whole system of tunnels for getting in or out. There must be 100 miles of tunnel in something that big. This way I'll have Norbert laid down an electronic path." Gil said, "What purpose will that serve, Doctor?" "Two, at least," Stan said. "First, with Norbert videotaping as he goes, we'll provide science with an invaluable record of life inside an alien hive. And second, we can come back here whenever we like to collect more jelly." "Now you're talking, Stan," Julie said. "I knew you weren't just anti-dog." "Of course not. As a matter of fact, I'll have Norbert try to rescue Mac when they've reached the Queen's chamber." "That might not be possible," Gil said. Stan shrugged. "Let's get going. Norbert, do it." The synthetic xenomorph did as it was directed. This crucial journey was integral not only to Dr. Mayakovsky's scientific curiosity, but his survival in perpetuity, with a lifetime supply of royal jelly as the reward. It would not be as simple as anticipated. Deep within the labyrinth structure, the Queen grew aware, and so did her children. Mayakovsky, following the trail of his invention, would soon know the true dangers of the hive. In this series, I'm recounting the events taking place in the aftermath of the Earth War, as depicted in the original Aliens comics. This particular comic, originally titled Aliens Hive, was written by Jerry Prosser, with art by Kelly Jones and Lee Dorseed. The story was subsequently titled Aliens Harvest, and later adapted into a novel version written by Robert Sheckley. The accounts explored here are an amalgam of both versions of the story. Its conclusion will follow. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe to keep up with all the latest videos from Alien Theory. My very special thanks goes out to Nicholas Butta, our Wayland-Yutani executive, and Gregory Ford, the Patreon Hive Praetorian. A very, very special thanks to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley tier of excellence. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for further information. In the meantime, you can follow me on social media. Follow @alien_theory on X, formerly Twitter. Follow @AlienTheoryYT on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.